Welcome back to another episode of Tears of a Father. Today we're diving into something that's personal, painful, and powerful. Breaking generational curses. For many of us, the cycles of trauma, addiction, and absent fatherhood didn't start with us, but they can end with us. We don't have to repeat the mistakes of our parents. We can build a better life for our kids. I know what it's like to come from a broken home. I know what it's like to feel like you're carrying the weight of the past on your shoulders. But I also know that we have a choice. We don't have to let our past define who we are. This episode is about how we break the cycle, heal, and build a future where our kids don't have to go through what we did. And I want to start with something real. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's a quote I had heard once, and man, it stuck with me. Because for a long time, I held on to a lot of anger. But I learned that the only way to truly break the cycle is to let that anger go. I grew up in a broken family. My mother struggled with addiction, and it eventually took her life. My father was a hard worker, but he also had his own battles. Over time, he left, and there were many years when we wouldn't see him. My siblings and I were put into foster care. We bounced between family members, homes, always in and out, never knowing where we truly belonged. Sometimes my parents would get back together and regain custody of us for a little while, but it never lasted. I want you to sit there and realize that when you're bouncing from home to home like that, what it does to a child's mental, especially at a young age when you're still developing, and you have to go through the stuff that we went through, the stuff that we had seen. I would never wish that upon anybody, not even my worst enemy. Saw things no kid should have to see. It was chaos. But through all of it, I made a decision. I told myself that when I had kids, I would never let them grow up in that kind of environment. I would never argue with my spouse in front of my kids. I would be a father who was present, who showed love, who created a safe home, and I've stuck to that. Although times have been hard, I've always been able to have a roof over my kids' heads. There were times when I was younger that I didn't have that. I didn't have food. I didn't have something to drink. I didn't have a place to sleep. And like I said, when you're that young, what that does to you mentally as you're growing up and you're realizing what you just went through was not normal, it really does mess with you. I still have nightmares of that. Proverbs 22:6. Start children off on the way they go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Kids see everything that you do. Kids listen to everything that you say. Do right by your kids. Before you say or do something, sit there and realize, what if that happened in front of me? How would I act? How would you act? If you're sitting there cussing 24/7, you're sitting there arguing all the time, because I know a lot of these relationships are toxic and they can't stand their partners, but it is what it is. If you're watching that as a kid, imagine how much they're learning from that. They're learning they can talk to their spouse that way. They're learning that I don't even know how to explain it, honestly. Because in that moment when you're doing all that in front of your kid, you just don't understand it. When I was a kid and I watched this stuff happen, and I've seen, like I said, I've seen so much stuff. I don't know how I reacted. I really don't. But I still remember a lot of the instances to this day. Some people may think that PTSD is only a thing for war. And honestly, the childhood I went through feels like a battle. It was a war. Because I have PTSD from it to this day. Breaking generational curses starts with a choice. You have to decide that you're going to be different. That you're going to be the father your kids deserve. That means learning from the past, not repeating it. One thing I've realized is that arguing and negativity are not worth it. There's so much negativity already in the world. Don't bring it to your own home. Don't show that to your kids. When I was a kid, all I saw was negativity, fighting, pain, destruction. I refuse to let my kids see that in my home. I don't argue in front of them. If there's an issue between me and my wife, we handle it privately. Kids soak up everything. If they grow up in negativity, they will believe that's normal. I want my kids to see love, patience, and respect. If you grew up in a toxic home, you might feel like that's all you know, but trust me, you can unlearn those patterns. It takes effort, but it's possible. So how do you break the cycle? Here are some of the things that help me. 1. Self-awareness. You have to recognize the patterns in your family that you don't want to repeat. For me, it was addiction, instability, and broken relationships. Once you identify what you're fighting against, you can start changing it. 2. Healing from trauma. Therapy, journaling, talking to someone you trust, whatever helps you process your past. You can't build a better future if you're still carrying the weight of what was done to you. You know, I've always said, don't let your past define who you are today. The past is the past. Yes, it is going to affect you mentally for a very long time. It may affect you for the rest of your life. Talk about it. Write it down. Get it out of your system, because when you do those things, it makes you feel so much better. Trust me. I always said, if this wouldn't have happened when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have done this, you know. And as I grow up, I realize how stupid that was. I can't let somebody else's actions define who I am today. I was always told growing up, you're going to be just like your father. You're just going to be like your mother or whatnot. And that pisses a kid off, no matter who you are, what situation you're in, to be told that you're going to grow up and be like the person that has left you behind. Person that has scarred you for life. I absolutely hated being told I was going to be like my father. Thank God, 28 years later, I'm not like my father. I love the man. I have forgiven him for everything that has went on in my life. A lot of you will hold a grudge, and I don't believe now that you should. If your parents are still alive to this day and you're holding a grudge for something that happened when you was a kid, fix that relationship. Let go of that grudge, because it's going to eat at you when one of them die. My mom died a few years back, 2017. There is nothing more that I regret than keeping my kids away from her because of who she was back in the day, because of what she did to me. I wish I could have let my mother see her grandchildren before she passed. I wish I could have done something to help her. And I didn't. So let that stick in your brain. If your parents are alive today and they pissed you off when you was a kid, they did this when you was a kid, whatever, talk to them. If they ain't gonna talk to you, talk to them again. Don't give up, because you'll regret it when they're gone. That leads me to number 3, forgiveness and letting go. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of hate. My father recently graduated from his rehab program and moved back to Ohio in 2023. I can personally tell you, I am proud of him. I am so proud of him. Yeah, I'm 28 years old, and it has taken him my whole lifetime and the 51 years he's been alive to figure out what he needs to do as a man. And I'm still proud of him. He made mistakes, but he's working to fix his life. And I had to let go of the anger I held against him, because at the end of the day, he is still my father, and I love him. Again, like I said, my biggest regret was keeping my kids away from my mother because of her addiction. I let my hate control that decision. And now she's gone. I wish she was here to see her grandkids. Don't hold on to hate. It only leaves you with regrets. Number 4, being the father you needed. I think about the kind of dad I wish I had growing up. That's the father I strive to be. Present, loving, strong, a leader, someone my kids can depend on. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. It's not that hard to go to another room to argue. Your anger from work at what's going on in your life will need to be bottled up away from your kids. Get a grown up, get an adult that will listen to you. Get your anger out that way. Do not bring that anger into your home, because all it does is cause chaos and show your kids that it's okay to be angry all the time. To every father out there trying to break the cycle, keep going. I know it's hard. Some days, the weight of it all feels unbearable, but your effort matters. Your kids will grow up knowing love, security, and stability because of you. If you've been struggling, if you feel like the past is still weighing you down, just know you're not alone. Keep pushing forward, keep fighting to be better, and remember, you are not your past. You are the father your kids need. As we wrap up this episode, I just want to remind you, breaking generational curses isn't easy, but it's worth it. The future you are building for your kids is worth it. Keep moving forward, one step at a time. That's it for this episode. I want to thank you for listening to Tears of a Father. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Reach out to me on social media or leaving a comment. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Keep being the father your kids deserve. Have a great night. Remember to subscribe, follow, share. Get other fathers into the podcast. You want to share your story, you can email me at tearsofafatherpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook. Message me on there. I'm an open book. I'm going to tell you everything that I've went through. I'm going to give you advice. I'm not here to judge you at all. This is a judgment-free zone. I want to hear your story. What's your past? What's your future look like? What have you went through? With that being said, my name's Andrew. Thank you for listening to Tears of a Father. I hope you have a great night. Also, to all men and women out there, happy Valentine's Day. Love you guys.